Hi, everybody. I want to welcome everybody here at our event in Richmond Hill, those who are on the phone and those who are watching live at timetowin.ca. My name is Vic Fideli. I'm the newly elected MPP for the riding of Nipissing. I'm very excited to host this first of its kind ever launch for what I will believe will be a strong, well-organized, and winning campaign for president of our PC party. My friend Richard Ciano is an exceptional candidate for the position of president, and that's why I have agreed to co-chair his campaign along with Peter Sherman, the re-elected MPP for Thornhill, who has joined us by phone. Hi, Peter.
Hey, Vic, good to talk to you, and great to co-chair with you.
It's a real honor to be able to work with you, Peter, and to do this for our friend Richard. I've been asked to... Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I've been asked to say a couple of words about Richard, but I'm more interested in getting for us to hear him speaking rather than hear from me, but I will say a couple of quick words about my friend Richard. He certainly has a long and active history in the Progressive Conservative Party and in conservative politics here in Ontario and across Canada. He is running to be president of the PC Party of Ontario because, quite frankly, as the posters say, it's time to win. And winning starts with very strong ridings. And I have to tell you, as a first-time PC candidate in Ontario, Richard came to North Bay, and Nick came to North Bay frequently. I saw a guiding hand. It was always friendly advice from him, very thoughtful, very studied, and very knowledgeable advice that I received from Richard. That was always appreciated and always followed, I want to say. So I ran what would be called a successful campaign, primarily because of the guidance I had from the 30,000 foot level from Richard. But then he also swooped in to give me some real street-by-street advice. And so we're going to win this next provincial election. We're going to win because we're going to have strong ridings. And that's why we need a strong president, and that's why we need my friend Richard Ciano as our president. So that's the formal words. Peter, I just want to take a minute to mention a few things about how tonight's event will work. And after Peter and I introduce Richard, Richard is going to speak about why he's running. After that, we're going to take questions. And we're going to try to take questions from the phones, from the room here in Richmond Hill, and also from the web stream chat. So a little bit technical for you for a moment. If you're on the telephone and you wish to ask a question, press star and then press the number 3. You're going to dial in on your keypad and you're going to get into the queue. So you're going to start by pressing star, the star button, and then the number 3 button, and you'll be in the queue. If you're on the website, and that's timetowin.ca, type your question in the chat window. To participate in the online chat and ask a question, you click on the right arrow on the right side of the webcast and click on the chat tab. Okay? Right arrow, right side, click on the chat tab, and make sure you start with the word question so we can try to catch it. And we won't be able to get to everyone because there are a lot of people who have dialed in, but you'll have an opportunity to leave a message with your question for Richard to answer. And of course, you can contact Richard through his website. Did I mention it? It's timetowin.ca. Also, note that if you're listening on the phone and watching the web stream live at timetowin.ca, there will be a 3 or 4 second delay. So I know it's going to sound a little freaky, but just get used to that. There is going to be a delay on the web stream, so you might want to choose which audio to listen to. All right? Without further delay, I'd like to ask my fellow caucus participant, Peter Sherman, to say a few words. Peter?
Thanks very much, Vic. And boy, those are good words. Just saying my fellow caucus participant sounds pretty good. So I'll take this opportunity to congratulate you on joining our PC caucus and helping expand it to 37 as we move on the way to the magic number of 54 and surpassing that and taking government away from Dalton McGuinty, which is why we're all on the phone watching a web stream in a room in Richmond Hill tonight. This is a real interesting turn of events for me, and I think for anybody who knows Richard Ciano. Richard Ciano is the person who is in a very proverbial stance behind always a successful candidate or group of candidates in a victory photo. That's the guy he is. That's the guy that he's been for many, many years, including my own photo several times. He is the power behind electing successful politicians. And so tonight's event is a departure from that because he steps from the second row of that photo into the front and center lit part of that photo as a candidate himself. And I think that is a remarkable turn of events and one that should herald, in many respects, a new turn of events for the PC party as well. I am one side of a 5-year friendship with Richard Ciano. I met him originally when I decided to get into provincial politics for the PC Party of Ontario because he came billed as one of the best guys you could ever have in your corner as a campaign manager, and we hit it off almost instantaneously, and indeed he became my campaign manager. Many of you know him as that. Many of you also know him as a fellow who, along with Nick Kuvalis, has provided an incredible amount of direction and some very winning research, not least in the recent provincial election. A lot of our winning colleagues, Vic, you, and many others, have taken advantage of what Richard has provided by way of his expert direction and the savvy kind of research that we get from campaign research and that we know so well. Also, the very fact that this launch tonight is so technically oriented with a variety of different avenues in which to participate tonight speaks well of how on top of things Richard is. That's why he's a winner, and that's why we need him. Now, let me say a word. Over the course of the next weeks, we'll hear from other people who want to be the president of the Progressive Conservative Party of Ontario. And I can tell you, all of them good conservatives, and all of them wanting to win. Here's why Richard is different and why I agreed to co-chair this campaign. Richard is different because he is a person with the ability to be dispassionate and to be calculating in a very good way. He is incredibly research-driven and incredibly goal-oriented, and he takes whatever the project is through to completion. When we ran in Thornhill in 2007, this was going to be a real gargantuan task, and it became even more so if everybody, and you do, remembers how that campaign unfolded. But we won. And then I think it was victory night. Richard and I made an agreement that he would be involved in a 2011 campaign, which would be of a very different stripe, because we wanted to see if we could do back-to-back wins in Thornhill. It had never been done by any party, and certainly not by the Progressive Conservatives. He did it. We did it. And if we want to, we'll do it again. I think we want to. Because next time, it's going to be for keeps. Next time, it's going to be, as the slogan says, time to win. Next time is when we're going to defeat Dalton McGuinty or whoever succeeds him and take over the politics of Ontario, which are in bad need of a change. We're talking here in Richard Ciano of a professional in politics at the national, the provincial, indeed the international level. He is a leader. He is proactive. He is the guy who, as president, is going to do his part in seeing to it that at the riding level we can carry more ridings than we ever have before, and that we can take by a singularly massive majority the province of Ontario. And that's why I'm so proud to stand with Vic Fideli as co-chair on this campaign. So without further discussion and with no more words from me, let me introduce the man of the evening, my friend Richard Ciano.
Great, and thank you very much, Vic and Peter. for both your role in tonight's groundbreaking event. I'm really grateful for your participation and for all the support. And I can say that whatever help I've given you over the years is not matched by both of your incredible ability. And it's certainly well rewarded by the people in your respective ridings. It's very clear. I think as much time and effort as I put into it, I still played a small role in your victories because they were well deserved. I do want to say it's unusual that somebody comes on and does an endorsement in this kind of way and describes you as dispassionate and calculating, and they mean it in a good way, and that it suits the role. But I understand what Peter's saying. I want to be clear. I'm not running for public office in the sense of being an MPP or mayor or anything like that. I'm running to be a party president. And in some ways, you do have to be very calculating and focused very much on the end result, which is electing a majority government. Of course, I'll talk about that more in a little bit. But as I said, I'm really, really grateful for both the participation of Peter and Vic. I also want to recognize the tremendous support I've received from the other your fellow caucus members. As of tonight, there's 8 others as well who've publicly declared that they're supporting me and have joined my team. So I would like to recognize them as well. MPPs Julia Monroe, Rodney Jackson, Steve Clark, Lisa MacLeod, John O'Toole, Jack McLaren, and Christine Elliott. And I will say one mystery person as well who is just dialing into their executive meeting tonight, wanted to let their local folks know first, so I'm going to respect that, and we'll announce that person tomorrow. But as of tonight, we've got 10 members of caucus and MPPs who are on board and supporting my candidacy. So I'm very proud of that achievement, and thank you to Vic and Peter as well for your help with that. I'm also joined by some others here tonight who I do want to recognize. 2 candidates of record for us. Greg Shirk from Guelph made the trip, so thank you very much, Greg. And Shan Tharayapan, our candidate from Markham Unionville, has joined us tonight. I'm very grateful for your participation, and obviously if we're going to form the next government, we need folks like you to make it in the next round and become MPPs and members of our caucus as well. And I also want to recognize Greg Barros, a councillor from Richmond Hill, is with us tonight. We're very grateful for your participation, and I know Greg's someone we've looked at both federally and provincially as a prospective candidate for us one day. So certainly welcome your participation tonight, Greg. Thank you. Also want to say I just received calls from both Rob and Doug Ford, the mayor and a councillor in the city of Toronto, offering me their full support for this run as well. So I'm certainly very grateful for that. This is a really exciting night. We're doing some really innovative things here. This is just an example of the type of things and the type of new thinking that I'm going to bring, and that we're not going to be afraid of as a party if I should become president of the Ontario PC Party. But I also want to say that an event like this is a lot of work to put together, and I want to thank my volunteers for the amazing work that they've done, both technically and organizationally and otherwise, with the web stream and the town hall tonight. And I certainly want to thank everybody who's joined us and taken time out of your extremely busy schedule to join us, whether it's on the phone or online. I'm very grateful. So thank you. We've got a really, as you know, those who've been involved in campaigns with me, whether it's Peter or Vic or others, I know how incredibly crucial volunteers are to a campaign. I really feel that the best thing about our Ontario PC Party is our volunteers, and I'm really enthusiastic to show in part how we can build an amazing volunteer team in our party across the province and start right here with my campaign. Let me start by saying that I'm running for president of the Ontario PC Party because I've had enough of Dalton McGuinty and his poor government, high taxes, and I've had enough of our party losing elections. It's time to win. Winning starts with strong ridings, and that will be my focus as president. Strong ridings that are organized, well-funded, plugged into our grassroots policy development process, respected, appreciated, and listened to. Strong ridings that can help win a majority government in the next election and make Tim Hudak our next premier. I want to be very clear, as important as this race for president of the party is, it pales in comparison to the importance of making sure that at our convention in February, we reaffirm Tim Hudak's leadership in our party with as strong a possible mandate as we can. It is absolutely essential to the future health of our party that we all get behind and support Tim Hudak as he stays leader of our party. Frustration, yes. Disappointment with the result, yes. Those things are all understandable. But my belief is very strongly that Tim's personal performance in the campaign was exceptional. I was particularly struck by his enormous efforts and performance in the debate. Imagine a first-time leader. Frankly, he did well by any measure as a leader, never mind as a first-time leader against a skilled operator like Dalton McGuinty. So I really feel very strongly that we need to keep Tim Hudak as our leader and make him our next premier. You know, in some ways, Ontario is a very conservative electorate, not necessarily in the partisan sense, but in the risk aversion sense. And one thing that's clear is that the last 4 premiers of this province and the current prime minister had to run and lose an election before they ran and won and became premier or prime minister respectively. And I think our best investment of time and effort is to make sure we go forward with Tim Hudak as our leader. So as good as the performance of our leader and our caucus team was, there are certainly some areas for improvement and things that we need to work on and things that I hope to work on if I should become party president. What are those things? I'll sum them up quickly and then I'll go into them in a little bit of detail. One of them is open and fair and locally controlled nominations. The other is restoring a grassroots policy development process to our party. And lastly, it's reestablishing the principle of local control of our local campaigns. So let's start with open and fair and locally controlled nominations. Part of the process of seasoning our candidate so that they get to the point where they can win in an actual general election is having them go through the process of winning the support in their local association of the membership of their local association. If you do otherwise, if you just drop a candidate in because it seems it's expedient, or because headquarters or someone else gets enamored with a candidate, I understand the temptation. It seems like a good idea, but it fails us almost every time because it alienates the longtime volunteers in the riding, and it doesn't put that candidate through the seasoning that they need. Look, I served for 4 years as National Vice President of the Federal Party, and in that time, I know the temptations that come across and how easy it is to get sucked in to the more expeditious way of doing things. And I think we actually swung the pendulum a little bit too far in that time when I served on National Council, a little bit too far. But we need to go back now, and particularly in our Ontario PC Party, we need to get back to the principle that local associations pick their candidate. And that's something I'm going to fight very hard for, and I'm going to put some specific policies in place throughout the course of this campaign that are going to demonstrate a commitment to bringing that back as a policy. Our policy development process is one of the amazing strengths of our Ontario PC Party. We always, when we engage the grassroots in our party, like we did in consultations in 1995, when we came up with the Common Sense Revolution in the years leading up to 1995, and even in the blueprint process in 1999, it was amazing the bold and conservative policies that we were able to come up with as a party, and were able to engage the public in really a very exciting way. In fact, it's not necessarily terribly well known, but we were so strong at policy development, the policy development process as a party, and the policy that we ultimately came up with, not just in Canada, but around the world. We actually had leaders from internationally come to Ontario and steal. They were welcome to them, and take our ideas and take our branding and take our platform elements. That, in fact, there were articles at the time around between 96 and 99 about William Hague, then the then leader of the British Conservative Party, coming and falling quite enamored with some of our policies as a party and taking them back to Britain. We can be that leader again as a party in the grassroots policy development process. And we need to engage our grassroots to come up with bolder policy ideas, and to give our leader, frankly, to give our leader more to work with on that front, on the policy front. And I think we can do that. It's a bit of a difficult area in politics. You know, there's a temptation to want to kind of be, take the safe route. And I strongly believe it doesn't work when we do that. We need to be bold in our policy. But part of that being bold is making sure that our party is behind those bold policies. It's kind of a double-edged sword. Nobody puts out bold policies because they're afraid they won't have the party behind them. But, you know, if you engage the grassroots in the policy development process properly, you will have the party behind you, and you will be able to sell those policies to the public. The last point I want to focus on in terms of the things I think we need to improve in our party is local control of local campaigns. Look, I was part of the first target seat unit at the federal level when we pioneered supports, real heavy campaign supports at the riding level. Things like templated literature, things like assistance with everything from phone call programs to robocalls to training, etc. I was really proud to be part of that there. But one of the things that was very clear and that seems to have gotten lost is that those supports for our local campaigns and candidates and riding associations were optional. They were voluntary, and they were supports. They weren't mandatory programs that were forced down the throats of ridings. And we need to recognize that Tim Hudak becomes premier and we win as a party when the local campaigns win. And they have a better shot of winning when they have the flexibility to customize their campaign for their local circumstances. Again, we've swung a little bit too far in the opposite direction as a party, and we need to get back to where we're saying, here's something for you to use as a support and not something that you will use that's mandatory, whether you like it or not, or whether it's suitable for your riding or not. Training, this was another example, and I'll be talking more. That's something I have a lot of experience at, and want to get our party go a little bit farther with our current training program, even though it has some strengths. One of the things I've heard from candidates on is that they felt we had good candidate training in this past election. That was great, and one of the things they trained our candidates very strongly in was taking part in local debates and how to do debate prep. And then what happened? Then they told candidates not to participate in any local debates. And you really have to wonder why that happened, and that kind of thing hurts us on the ground. Whether, and certainly Peter and I have had this debate many times about how many debates to participate in, but that's the kind of debate you have at the local level. And the answer isn't 0, because then you get killed in your local newspaper because you don't show up at the debate. So that's the kind of decision that's got to be made locally and not at party headquarters. I see 2011 and the situation we're in right now is very similar to what we came through after 2004 federally. We've just held the Liberals to a minority, and that's very exciting. But now we need to consolidate our gains and strengthen our organizations at the riding level, in particular in the GTA and in the 416, and that's the way that we're going to win. And that's, as I said, at the same point, the same situation where that I ran in and became a federal party vice president. Many of our riding associations in the GTA in particular, looking at the GTA candidates and supporters around the room, and in Toronto, many of our associations have atrophied, and we need to do a lot of work there. So what are some of those things we're going to work on and we're going to talk about more in the campaign? Well, we're going to talk about training. That's something that I worked on for 3 years with the federal party, and not just training right before an election, ongoing regular training. And one of the things we're going to do, we're going to bring back, or actually bring to the Ontario PC party that we had in the Conservative Party of Canada when I was involved, was online training, because there's a lot of folks who will participate, would be happy to participate from the convenience of their home and online. We need to work actively with our ridings on volunteer recruitment, on membership recruitment, on fundraising, and yes, on candidate recruitment too. And all of this is so that when the leader and the caucus decide to pull down the government, we're ready to win a Tim Hudak majority government. Very quickly about my experience before we take questions, not just from the room and from the web stream online, but also from the telephones as well. I just want to say very briefly my experience. I was national councillor and federal National Party vice president for just nearly 4 years, when at the same point exactly as I'm saying now that we were in opposition and want to go to government. I've been a 4-time winning campaign manager and campaign chair, including in Thornhill, where my friend who's on the phone, Peter Sherman, is from, which I'll point out is the only riding bordering on the City of Toronto that we have won in the past 2 elections. And I also lastly want to say I was a pollster and chief strategist for Rob Ford in the City of Toronto, where we've won what was described by many as one of the most improbable political victories in Canadian history. So we need to get back to a confident and winning culture in our party, and only when people can express new ideas and be heard, we'll achieve that. And I want to make it clear that I will be available to all of our members and to all of our volunteers, and to make sure that that happens. So thanks very much. Those are sort of the formal part of my remarks, and I'll turn it back over to Vic.
Well, Richard, congratulations, and on behalf of everybody in the room, thank you very much for offering to lead us into the next election. I love every word that I've heard from you today. I went to candidate school with Ciano in the audience as well, and I remember that debate prep well, and the fun that we had, and so I really like virtually every word that you had to say tonight. I need to remind you of a couple of things. For those 2,600 plus people who are tuned in, on the telephone, you press the star button and then press the number 3, and you'll get in the queue to ask a question. And to participate online, to ask a question, you click on the right arrow on the right side of the webcast and click on the chat tab. So we're now going to take a question from the phone. Nelson, we're going to put you on. Nelson wants to know, he'll ask the question, but it's about our policies. So Nelson, who decides what we're going to campaign on? Do you want to ask your question? Nelson's not there. Trudy, we're going to come to you. Trudy.
Hi.
Trudy, your communication question for Richard?
Yes, my question had been that what is Richard going to do when it comes to coordinating from the party headquarters with the ridings? Obviously, when in his introduction, he sort of touched on that a bit, what he's going to do. So I don't know whether he can expand a bit more on exactly whether he's going to have people within the party headquarters making it a point that they're connecting with not only the riding but also with people in the constituencies or in the riding associations across Ontario.
Thank you, Trudy. We'll get Richard to give us some thoughts on that.
Thanks very much for the question, Trudy. Yeah, I think there's a lot of things we can do to increase communication in our party. One of the things is a process I've actually been participating in for the past few days is the regional presidents' council meetings. That's something that I want to bring back. They'd gone away for a while, I think for a good couple of years. We hadn't had them, and I want to bring back the regional presidents' council meetings. What are they? Because it sounds like it's just for presidents. They're not. Everybody's invited. Anybody can come to one of these regional presidents' councils, just that the invitees and specifically requested to come are the local riding presidents and local members of the executive and past candidates and so on. And so I'd like to see those happen on sort of a rolling basis, at least every 6 months, that we get back to that. Certainly email and newsletter forums. Frankly, I think forums like this are essential, and I will be again rolling out in a little more detail exactly the type of communication that we're doing, but I'd like to see regular online and telephone town hall conversations as well. So those are 3 of the things that I'm going to be talking in more detail about in the next little while.
Great, thank you, Richard. I want to make a reminder to people again, to the over 2,600 people who are tuned in. On the telephone, press the star and then press the number 3 and we'll get you in the queue. We're going to go to Judith in Sudbury. Judith, you had a question about Sudbury specifically.
I did, and some of the question was answered already because I was interested in knowing what Richard's attitude would be towards helping the outlying ridings like the one in Sudbury. Mm-hmm. We feel that we could do much better here than we have. I did fundraising for the candidate in the last election. We noticed that a lot of the donors here that give money, the money goes down to Toronto area, and we would like to retain more of that locally to help our local candidate.
Thank you, Judith.
I'd like your thoughts on that.
Thanks, Judith. I appreciate the question. I do want to say that, start by saying when I was a federal party vice president and national councillor, one of the things I did do was travel extensively. And in fact, Vic, I met you on those travels through the north, and that's part of how we formed a friendship and got involved. And certainly, I've always had a great affection for Northern Ontario. And I want to say that I don't consider any part of the province an outlying area or out of the way area. I traveled to 86 ridings in my time on national council, and you can bet that you'll be seeing, if I should become president of the party, that you'll be seeing a lot of me directly. But again, I think particularly those ridings, the larger geographic ridings, I think that's a better way to look at it necessarily than an outlying riding way. Those larger geographic ridings really suit themselves very well to the use of these kinds of technologies, advanced telephone conferencing, the web, and so on. And that's where I come at, for instance, the training component. That's something where you would get a lot more involvement from people in your ridings who may have to, travel hours and hours to get around if they could participate over the web and on the telephone. So that's going to be what I focus on as a priority for the ridings that are geographically larger.
Great question, Judith. We saw the real weakening of Bartolucci in Sudbury. Yeah. Damn near lost his seat, and so we know that with leadership from Richard, somebody who fully understands the 11 ridings in the north, he'll work hard. I know we had a great candidate in Jerry LaBelle in Sudbury and a great candidate in Paula Peroni in Nickel Belt. Two great candidates, yeah. And I know that with Richard's leadership, we're going to be able to help pull something out of Sudbury. I want to remind you again to press star and then press 3 on the telephone. And on the online chat, you go to the right arrow on the right side of the webcast and click the chat tab. We're going to go to Alan for a question en français.
No, the question is that in the north and east, French is a very strong language. Richard, do you speak any French? And the other part of the question is that you're talking about federal. You're behind the federal board. Is any provincial experience? Any VP on the Ontario PC board?
Yeah, I'll just say thanks for that. My French, I'll admit, is on the very rough side of things. I did study French in school and up until university, but like a lot of things, if you fall out of practice, you lose it. But I do have basic functionality, and certainly will improve it as I work with more of the ridings in the francophone areas. I will say absolutely we need to that support for whether it's francophone language or others is extremely important, and we need to as a party really embrace that. In terms of my experience at the provincial level, and obviously you pointed out my federal and municipal experience. I was I actually started really in the PC Party of Ontario. I was a young staffer at Queen's Park when I came out of university. I actually joined the provincial campus club first. Actually, the person in this room who hired me for my first provincial job is here, and worked at Queen's Park for 2.5 years in the first run and about a year in the second run, and that's, among other things, how I got to know many of the caucus members. And then I've been a member of my local riding association and a member of the executive many times over the years, and participated on many campaigns and committees, and also now as a two-time as a campaign manager and campaign chair provincially. So that is sort of my provincial experience.
Thank you very much. I'm looking on the telephone calls and online. Ken and Arn are both asking about grassroots policy and how do we ensure that it is respected and part of the platform.
Yeah, I think it's a two-part process. You know, one is there's been very few times where I've seen grassroots policy development play out really well at the provincial and federal level. When you actually do get people engaged in the policy process, it's not very often that even the skeptics, let's say, usually get into it and like the outcome. And you know, we have people all across this province who participate in PACs. You know, I've had several people talk to me who said they participated in the PAC process. Some of them drove from London to Toronto or Ottawa to Toronto on a regular basis to participate in the PACs. And, you know, a lot of them are really, you know, solid volunteers with a lot of expertise, you know, whether they sat on the Justice PAC or the Municipal PAC or the Energy PAC or what have you, and then say, you know what, I went out, I showed up at these meetings, and, you know, either great ideas that we had didn't come forward into the policy or platform, or things were in the policy or platform that we never, you know, talked about, and that what came as a surprise to us. So you've got to do two things. A, you've got to have a commitment to the actual process of bringing people together and having them discuss policy in an orderly and rational way that can lead to really good policy development. And then you've got to have a stronger link from that policy development process into the platform process. It's not just enough to leave policy on the book somewhere and leave it there. You've got to actually have it into our platform. I understand, you know, you've got to keep some things back for strategic reasons. You've got to have some things that are that maybe you roll out in a different way, but there's ways to get the grassroots involved that keep us competitive electorally as well. So I thank you for that question.
We have Mike on the phone, Richard, and he's got a question about campaign tools. Mike?
Yes, thanks for taking my call, Richard. Mike Butler from Parkdale High Park. One of the concerns that I'm raising, you had mentioned web training. I took part in some of the web training leading up to the election in managing the SIMS application. And I took part in all of that just to find out that the application, as you might be aware with BlackBerry problems, the application doesn't work on a Mac. And many people these days have dropped their iPads, dropped their BlackBerries in favor of the iPhone and iPads, and they're using Macs at home. And I was only able to use the application in the campaign office, and once I was able to use it, I forgot everything I learned, and in fact, it wasn't all that user-friendly. So what would you do to modernize our tools so that campaigns can actually use them?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really super question. I will say, you know, one of the things about those tools, and I've kept an eye on it because it's been an interest of mine, not just in the partisan political arena, but also I was for over a year the executive director of the Manning School of Practical Politics, and so training is a big is a real interest of mine. When I did the web training online for the federal party, you know, we had a contractor that charged us. I won't say it wasn't outrageous. It was a long time ago, and these tools weren't as well developed, and the technology wasn't quite there, and so it was expensive. It was thousands of dollars a month. And one of the things I'll say now is that the company that I'm involved with, we work with a lot of at-home workers, and in fact train the majority of our workers live over the internet using tools that quite frankly cost $100 or $150 a month now. So I do want to recognize what you've said. You know, there are a lot of available tools out there. I think the key is going to be making sure we get the feedback from the riding as to what platforms they want to use, whether it's iPad or Mac or Mozilla or Internet Explorer or what have you, and make sure we accommodate the greatest number of people as we can. I don't want to promise that we'll be able to accommodate every device or gadget that comes out there, but certainly we're going to make sure that we cover enough of the marketplace. And certainly one thing I do want to recognize as well is the quality of the content side. There's nothing worse really, from a campaign training point of view than trekking out there or even going online and participating in frankly a poorly run or badly done training program. So I just want to say that we're going to work really hard with both the volunteers and the staff in things like Sims where they would naturally be involved, and make sure that we get really high quality training product. But I'm quite confident that that's something I can deliver on.
Thanks, Richard. Thanks for the question, Mike. Remember, for those 2,600 online and on the phone, you hit the star button and you hit the number 3, and you will get in the queue to ask Richard a question. We have George from Timmins. George, you've got a regional question for Richard.
Yes, Richard, it's our meeting for our local candidate, which was the mayor of Kapuskasing. But it was a strange meeting because a couple of Liberal people were there, namely the president of the Liberal Association in this riding. I guess he switched his coat and came over to our side. And the funny thing that it was, we had nobody represented from the party itself, from down below. They should have been in here. We had NDP. It's as long as I've been in the party, in the campaign and in the party. And there's no reason why we could not elect a PC candidate in this riding. We have a lot of smart people here that could be picked as a candidate to run. Not saying that the mayor of Cap was not a good candidate. I'm not saying that. But and some representatives come in from down below and show themselves here. And I'm sure it would help our campaign.
Yeah, look, I want to say, look, in a lot of ridings in this province, I want to start with the point about, what people who had been former NDP or former Liberal or what have you, you sometimes get a bit of a tension there between the longtime party member folks and then, particularly in nominations when they say, oh, look at all the one-night Conservatives who come out or get involved, whether it's, in a campaign or whatever. Let me just say that, when it comes time the next election, if we're going to elect Tim Hudak as the next premier, we're going to need a lot more. We're going to need a lot of one-night Conservatives on the next election date to make sure that we get elected. So I'm all for including expanding our family, having a bigger and broader party, and welcoming folks that even if maybe had different judgments in the past, we want to welcome them all in. So I'll start with that. In terms of the accessibility point, I just want to emphasize again my point earlier that I don't see some areas as disparate or outlying or anything like that. We need to make sure your party executive is part of the reason getting involved in this campaign for the executive and for the president is so important, because we need to raise the bar in terms of having our president and our executive members and staff and so on active and out there and involved in the ridings wherever they are. There's no reason that you should have had a meeting and somebody from headquarters or on the party executive shouldn't be there. And then, again, the use of tools, whether it's like this or the telephone or web, we can expand the use of that so that we can all come together more in a way that makes sense. So.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you for the question, George. I know that my wife Patty and I were up at Al Spacek's nomination in Timmins, and that was a really packed room and a very strange room. I guess the Liberals had decided that they've had enough of the NDP and knew they couldn't win it on their own, and really came over to Al. If my memory serves me correctly, He had about 8,500 votes. Gilles Bisson had 11,000. And that's probably one of the best showings the PCs have had since the Alan Pope days. And so it's one seat that I have promised Tim that we're going to win next election is Timmins and the other Kenora up in Northern Ontario. We've got to pull those two. So we'll be counting on you, George, for your continued advice.
Well, one thing, I just want to make to emphasize this point, riding, Timmins, there's no doubt it's been a riding we've had trouble with for a couple of decades now. We haven't been able to take it. But one example I will use is the 1995 election. In that election, the campaign team ranked every riding in the province from 1 to 135, because there was 135 ridings in the province at that time. And in that election, 1995, our party won 86 seats. Obviously, that was pretty good. It was enough to form a majority. But one of the point of my story is that we won riding number 135 on that ranking list. Okay, so you can't just write off ridings. You can't just decide we're not going to win ridings. When you do that, you sell your party short. We sell our leader short. So we need to play for every riding and to fight hard in every riding, no matter how tough it's been in the past.
Richard, we're going to shake it up a little and ask a poll question for the people who are participating on the telephone. So, the poll question number 1. Are you planning on attending the convention in Niagara Falls? The convention is the weekend of February 11th and 12th, so you can press number 1 for yes, press number 2 for no, and press number 3 if you're not sure. So that's, are you coming to the convention in Niagara Falls? Press number 1 for yes, number 2 for no, and number 3 if you're not sure. We're going to go to an online question, Richard, from George. Candidate selection. Must all candidates, even defeated ones, be assumed to be running again because we have a minority government?
No. Yeah, we look, come out of the federal scene where I dealt with this many times. We had three successive minorities, one Liberal and two Conservative, and we got feedback from caucus about having open nominations. That's a basic principle for me. Every person, whether they're a caucus member or not, that wants to be a candidate for us in an election has to win the confidence of their local association and win a nomination. It doesn't have to be contested. I think in a lot of cases, partly because it's a minority, and certainly with caucus members, I think the appeal will be comparatively low for that. But I don't want to get into the practice of setting aside ridings or saying that folks shouldn't have to contest a nomination. Recognize that a lot of folks, I've had caucus members as well who side with me on that, who say, my riding it's a pretty good riding. I do pretty well in my riding. It's solidly conservative. My only chance to test my standing with my community is to maintain and hold on to my local nomination. I've actually had candidates who tell me that, and again, I think it's a really important principle that we stick to. One of the things we can look at if it really starts to become an issue with minority after minority and after minority, like we did federally, and even this I'm reluctant to do, is have a formula where we might send a mail-out ballot to the local association and say, do you want to hold a nomination meeting in the case where there are incumbents? That's something that we could look at, but even that I'm skeptical of that approach. I'd just like to have an open nomination process.
Wonderful, Richard. I just want to remind you again, you press star, you press number 3, and you can get into the queue to ask questions. Brad, you had a question. I'll call it a liberal light agenda. Fire away. Brad, are you there?
Yeah, we're here.
There you go, buddy. You're on.
Oh, okay. My biggest concern was that during the election campaign, when Facebook was rolled out, that, as a fiscal conservative, the Facebook made it current. So basically, what I want to know is will we see a conservative agenda?
Okay, Brad, we've got a bad connection with you, but we get the gist of your question. He's asking about a more conservative policy platform.
Yeah, I think we certainly need a bolder policy platform for the next election. There's just no doubt about that. Look, I'm very comfortable with the positioning of our leader, Tim Hudak. Tim's a conservative guy. I think he absolutely represents very well the mainstream of the party, and I think the mainstream of the public fits the mainstream of the party very well. He's a resolute and solid conservative, and certainly I think if we engage, the times that I've witnessed the process play out, where we have engaged the grassroots in a truly grassroots and open and inclusive policy development process, we get more bold and more conservative policy. So I'm confident that that's the way to go to get to bolder policy.
Richard, we've got a question, online question from Eric from Stormont Dundas, South Glengarry. In regards to the target seat program, are you open to more flexibility and input from local campaigns as opposed to a blanket take it or leave it option?
Yeah, absolutely. That was one of the key things I'm running on, and one of the key points. We need to have more flexibility there. These things have to be support that we give to the riding. Look, one of the few things you'll never hear me say this. Everyone keep it a secret. I use these two words in the same sentence. One of the things I actually admire about the Liberals, okay, everyone, forget I said that, is their ability to be flexible with their local campaigns. They clearly have an awareness of the fact that you got to win campaigns locally, and sometimes you need to pivot on local issues, and sometimes you need to be able to play to your local strength. And that's something we need to do better. I think that we've got to get back to these supports as being voluntary, as being so attractive, make them good, make them, and in some ways, the brand of our party was very strong in the communications products. I don't want to say that it was all bad. There was some good stuff done there, there's no question. But you need to have more flexibility. You need to allow ridings to play up their local candidates' credentials. You need to be able to address local issues. And when it comes to things like telephone calls and robocalls or all those things, the campaign has to have the flexibility to make those decisions. It's not one size fits all. So
we have a call from Art. Art, you were talking about the Richard's plan for Toronto.
Yes, Richard, I'd like to get the focus back on Toronto, because that seems to be our big weakness in the party. And greetings, by the way, from beautiful Haliburton Highlands, the home of Laurie Scott. And I would like to hear some more plans about if you're going to be the president, you'd better have a plan as to how we're going to get some additional success in downtown Toronto. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really appropriate that we've got somebody from that urban metropolis of Haliburton there calling in and asking us about Toronto. I totally get that. And I appreciate, it's a concern of a lot of party members, whether they're in rural areas or in Toronto, where it seems more immediately relevant. We need to do a better job there. Clearly, outreach is an area where we need to do work, and I've talked to the folks who have been involved in our party's outreach program. Clearly that's areas for improvement. I do just want to talk as well about my provincial and municipal experience working with Peter Sherman. Thornhill is right there bordering on the city of Toronto. It's for all intents and purposes a Toronto riding, and municipally with Rob Ford as well. We don't have to, the way to get to Toronto isn't to water down our principles or weaken our commitment to bold policy and conservatism. It's just to do a better job on the communications side, and recognize as well that the point I mentioned earlier, that in some ways Toronto is a skeptical electorate when it comes to our party, and part of this process, as difficult as it was to lose the past campaign, was that is part of the necessary process in getting us more comfortable in the city of Toronto. So feel quite obviously that's where we're going to have to get in there and work with the ridings, where we have a lot of ridings that are very weak, and not for any fault of their own, because the attention hasn't been paid, and the regular support from the party hasn't been there to nurture their membership, to provide them with the tools and the training that they need to build strong associations there. And that's where I'm going to need to dedicate a lot of my time as party president, is in strengthening those ridings in Toronto so that we can win the next campaign.
Thank you, Richard. On the phone is Joe, and he's got a question about your crystal ball. Joe?
Hey, Richard.
Hi.
Thank you for your time. I live in Barrie, and I worked with the Rod Jackson campaign, so it was a great win for us. Yes, I just in terms of when the next provincial election and discussion is in your mind, what do you foresee currently? And then in terms of the party president, I'm not sure how that election takes place.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, that's a great question. So in terms of when, that's a real tough one. My focus really as the party president is to get the party ready so that, as quickly as possible. I don't want to scare everyone and say, an election next month or something like that. But, or even in a year, it would obviously be very trying. But we've got to get ready as a party so that when the leader and the caucus decide to pull down, to put the McGuinty government out of its misery, I'd say, that we're ready to do that and we're ready to win the next campaign. So in terms of when, it's really, really hard to say. There's a number of factors there. So in terms of the process, just very briefly on that, it's a great question. A lot of folks don't know. There's our provincial convention is in Niagara Falls, February 10th, 11th, and 12th. Every riding sends 16 delegates and 5 youth. In ridings where there is a recognized youth association, the youth association selects those youth delegates. The 16 are supposed to be balanced, 8 male and 8 female. The riding president and the candidate of record, or MPP as the case may be, are automatic delegates. So to be if you're not an MPP or a riding president or so on, you need to show up at your delegate selection meeting, signal your intention early to your riding president or someone on the executive of your association that you want to be a delegate, and then show up at your delegate selection meeting. You should get written notice if you're a paid up member of the party of when that is. You show up to your delegate selection meeting, you become a delegate, and you come to the convention. You spend a couple nights at our hospitality suite partying with us and the group here, and then you vote for me as president, and then everyone goes back home. That's the process in so many words. So.
Well, thank you, Richard. Joe, just on that note as well, you've got to make sure that you've renewed your membership, right? December, the memberships expire. January 1, you need to renew it. You can renew it right up to and including the time of the delegate selection, something along that line. Yep. Nonetheless, they sunset at the end of December.
That's right.
So you need to renew your membership. Richard, this has been very, very exciting. You fielded the questions. Why don't you just bring it home for us? Take a couple of seconds and wrap it up for us.
Sure. And look, Vic, I really want to thank you for the tremendous job you've done tonight in hosting this really groundbreaking live event, web, in person, telephone. It's really been exciting to participate in. It would have been really hard to pull off without you in the role that you've taken. So thank you very much, Vic, for your participation. And thanks everyone for in the room for coming out. And thank you as well. It's no less, I don't want to give any less credit to the folks that joined us on the phone and the folks who came on over the internet. I really, really appreciate the time that you've allowed me to make my pitch as to why I should be your party president. Please take an interest in this election for the executive. It's very important. It's really essential that we recognize the forward progress that we made as a party in the last election, thanks to our leader, Tim Hudak. And with a renewed commitment from our party and our party members, our party executive, our party president, our caucus, etc., we'll get Tim the absolutely essential, strong mandate that he needs to lead our party into the next election with confidence and the knowledge that he has a strong and united party behind him. So please get involved in that. Again, just to emphasize the points that I'm going to focus on through my campaign: open, fair, and locally controlled nominations, engagement and attachment with our grassroots in the policy development process, and a focus on bringing back local control of our local campaigns for the next election. So those are the things that I'm running for, that I'm going to be talking more about: a renewed focus on training, strengthening our association's membership and volunteers. So thanks very much, everyone, for tonight, and good night.
Beautiful. Congratulations.